The following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op, in affiliation with the network at bicbp-radio.com.
Hello and welcome back to Why We Pod. I'm Rich Meranto. I'm the owner and operator of Emerge as well as Meranto Media. And if you've watched any of our other episodes, thank you for tuning in again. This podcast is a podcast about podcasters. Why We Pod, it's a little bit technical, like what have we learned about what best practices and equipment and marketing and branding, but also just kind of the philosophical side of why someone would do this kind of thing. Why would you spend all your time podcasting, and what do you get out of it? So that's kind of like what we'll be doing today. And this is my fifth interview, my last of season one, and I'm really excited to have one of the podcasters that I've gotten to know real well out of Emerge, and he's been with me, for about a year now. Don, why don't you just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about yourself?
Well, let me take this opportunity to thank you for having me on this pod, and to answer the question why we pod. We're attention whores. We like to have all the attention on us. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, it's actually been, we're going on a year and a half. October of 23.
It doesn't seem like that long.
I know, October of 23. So we're at about the year and a half mark. Yeah. So I do Defion Productions. I'm Don, the hardest working nobody in Bitcoin. Our podcast is a financial podcast. We talk mostly Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I have a co-host, Troy. If you know anything about the cryptocurrency environment, I'm what you would call a Bitcoin maxi. Basically, I think Bitcoin is the be-all, end-all. My co-host owns, depending on the point in time, anywhere between 60 and 100 coins. I think we got him down into a more manageable 20 at this point, and I've been trying for the last 2.5 years to get him to be a Bitcoin maxi as well. So we spend a lot of time talking about markets, talking about crypto, and this emerging ecosystem that many people don't know about. Right. And I saw a opportunity to use my knowledge and my skill set to kind of talk about those types of things.
And so for people that are just watching this and have never seen your pod, it's interesting.
Shame on you.
Yeah, tune in, like in stars. You got to get them some stars. It's your pod specifically, and we're going to get into a lot of things, but your pod is, you actually started it before. You guys were just doing it on your own.
Yeah, in my basement, basically.
And I think we met because of Courtney.
Yeah.
My hairdresser.
My sister-in-law does your hair, and she had mentioned to me, and then obviously mentioned to you, because I had, at that point, we were doing our podcast because we've been doing our podcast about 2.5 years.
Right. So
we've actually been doing it at Emerge longer than I was doing out of my basement. My co-host, Troy, it's kind of a funny story. We met on basically Ancestry.com. That's a whole weird, wild story. If you ever get super famous, it'll be an awesome behind-the-scenes VH1 documentary that we could do. But the long story short is we met at a family party, and he was talking crypto, and I met his father first, and his father's like, my son never stops talking about this crypto stuff, and my wife was like, oh my God, they're going to get along. Long story short, we sat on a couch outside and talked for 3 hours, and he asked me, he was like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I'd love to do a podcast. And this was in 2021. Right. When we first started talking about it, and he was like, well, let's start filming. And I said, I've been in a couple of markets. I kind of know what to expect. We're going to get a little bit of a dip. I'd rather do this and screw up when nobody's watching, because I know in about 6 months, nobody's going to care about Bitcoin and crypto anymore. Right. And we can start filming, and we can get all our mistakes out when nobody's watching.
Right.
And that's kind of how we did. We started filming in 2022. We had the opportunity to interview Rashad Evans, because he has some NFTs, crypto adjacent stuff that he's got going on. I went to high school with him, and we booked that interview, UFC Hall of Famer. And then right when we started here, it was at the old studio, so right. It was like a couple months in, we had the opportunity. I just reached out on X, and that year's 2024, Brian Rask got inducted into the Poker Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, right.
Which is probably one of the most elite Hall of Fames. They only induct one person per year.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and the World Series has been going on for 50 plus years, so you got to be elite to get into that. And it was his induction year earlier that year. I reached out to him on X. He's a Bitcoiner. I know he's been a Bitcoiner because I followed him, and I just took a shot in the dark. I didn't know him from anything, and I just said, hey, I'm a Bitcoiner. I got a podcast. Would you ever consider coming on? And he responded, and we just went from there. And we had a really good interview with him. That's in our library. We talked to him about that type of stuff. But like, the long and the short of like podcasting, I just, it's a passion for me, this whole Bitcoin and crypto thing, to try to educate, and we call orange pill people. And I just thought the best way to hit the most people would be doing it through a podcast. I've been in this since 2013. I'm the Bitcoin guy in the Falls. Everybody knows me as Bitcoin Don, basically in the Falls. So I would get DMs and I would get messages of people asking me things about crypto, and I would respond. And when I was talking to Troy, I'm like, I'm kind of like sick and tired of just individually responding to people and just taking all this time to do these things. I don't mind doing it, but I'd rather have a much more efficient way of like giving people something to like chew on, and I figure the podcast would be a great way to do that.
So again, you're not a full-time, like, you have a real job.
Mm-hmm.
You've had, and you got into something now. You're a financial manager, planner. So you do that. You get your day job, and it's the fiat system. So I've learned some vocabulary from you, and it's funny because then you always are very careful on the pod of saying, listen, this is just my opinion. This is my opinion.
Not financial advice.
Yeah, like you're real good about that. And I think that's important because a lot of people on podcasts and social media in general are all experts on everything. Every time something happens, suddenly everybody's an immigration expert and everybody's a this expert. And I think you guys like when I produce it, I always feel like I kind of know exactly what this product's going to be. Like, I kind of know. Sometimes when I've had to kind of be the producer and we've gone off a little bit of politics, but we always kind of find, you always seem to have an understanding, even if something political's happened, you always bring it back to financial literacy. And that's kind of like, and you and I have talked about, in many ways, you look at Bitcoin as a way to be financial literate, to understand and really have a different way of thinking about like how you're going to create wealth. And I think that's what I've gotten out from it. And I've learned a lot. And and I've got my 403B and we talk about it all the time on yours, but I've learned a lot, and I've learned a lot of vocabulary, and it's made me think about, I never thought of it that way. And that's why I think your podcast is fun, because I think it really is probably in many ways the most educational of the ones that I do.
I think it's very unique. Our podcast specifically, I see in the crypto sphere and in the Bitcoin universe a gap. I think a lot what you said is I know it's in every genre, but the genre that I pay attention to the most, the Bitcoin genre, there's a lot of podcasts that will tell you what they're doing and why you should do what they're doing. Especially the large follower accounts, and that irks me.
For sure.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be told what to do because you did it, and just because you have a success path means I have to follow that same path.
Right.
There's many different roads to success. Your path just happens to be one of many. So I don't like to tell people what they need to do. I just tell people what I'm doing and my thesis of why I'm doing it.
And you always have a great answer, and you always seem to you don't say too much without, I think every time you say something, you almost always have like a rationale of where that came from, where most people don't. And I don't ever feel like you're saying things, and I watch and produce a lot of pods about, and a lot of them aren't mine, where people are not really, they're not authentic. And so my son and his friends sit in this set and they do their Star Wars, it started as a Star Wars podcast. And they had to evolve because they realized just talking about Star Wars wasn't enough. And once they kind of opened up what they wanted to do and they found themselves, it was interesting because the struggle was, there's other content very similar to them out there, and it goes for the clicks. It goes, let me be controversial. And, they didn't want that. And that's one of the things that I think I try to explain to people. Don't say something or do something because you think it's going to we're going to hit the algorithm if we say that. And I think that's for me, I want to make sure that the podcasts I'm producing have some level of, that integrity, or I want to work with people that actually know why they're here and they know what their vision is, if that makes sense.
It does. And I'm glad you brought that up, because me and Troy have had offline conversations about that. And we haven't grown as much as we probably could have if we would have taken that route.
Right.
For me, I don't want to say something because I'm looking for clickbait or because I'm looking for some controversy. I'm going to say something that I feel like needs to be said.
Right.
And I'm very opinionated. Two things. Number one, I love being proven wrong on something. I love my thesis being changed because that
Right.
means that somebody really put effort in. Because I'm very hardcore with my points and what I feel, but I love when somebody can change my mind on something because I'm so analytical and I really come from what I feel is a place of logic that I really respect. Even if somebody has completely different views from me, if they can get me to change my viewpoint on something and I can
Right.
see it a different way, I love when that happens. Even though in the midst of that it'll seem like we're gonna like fight each other and it's arguing, I love my frame of reference being shifted. That's number one.
Right.
Number two, I don't want to say something and do something that's going to be click worthy, but sometimes it'll just happen organically because I'll feel so strongly about something and it just happens to be a topic that people are talking about, I guess, or it's popular, and it'll come off as just being something, oh, that's a hot take. And it's like, not really. To me, like every take I have is a hot take. The whole ethos, and you were kind of mentioning it, and I was like making some mental notes. The reason why I'm doing this and the reason why I'm immersed into money and finance is because I believe that everything on planet Earth comes down to money. Our system that we engage in and we talk, and this is like your ears bleed when you probably hear this because I talk about it every week, but we have a debt-based system. So what that means is, our federal government prints money in order to service previous generations' debt. 1971, we got off the gold standard. When we got off the gold standard, it was free reign for the government to continue to print money. That's why we saw 2008 happen. That's why we've seen 2020 with insane money printing. And we also saw 2 20-year wars happen in Afghanistan and Iraq, which again would be a political statement, and people would think politics and stuff like that. Those wars never happen if we have a money that's backed by something hard, which means you can't just hit the money printer because you want to. You would have to have something backing that money. We don't have that, so it allows us to do things that are terrible for society because our money's screwed up.
It's funny because, like, I think sometimes people, they hear Bitcoin, and there's two things that people hear that I say when I talk about my space. And I often say I have a couple Bitcoin guys, and I'll say podcast. And those are two dirty words that I get slammed with by people all the time, including members of my own family. They're like, oh, that Bitcoin's a scam. And everybody's got a podcast now. And it's funny. So, like, the way you have to kind of defend crypto, specifically Bitcoin, and the way I have to pretend, I have to sometimes defend content. Because everybody's like, like this, everybody's got content now. When I was a kid, we just watched TV. I'm like, well, nobody watches TV anymore. And I go, if you think about, you hate TikTok for whatever reason, because you heard that somebody this owns it or whatever. But I'm like, TikTok has become, in many ways, yes, it's entertainment, but it's how people market. Like, it's commercials. TikTok is really, in many ways, commercials. People find out about things on TikTok, and then they decide they want to follow that person's brand and or product. Like, I can't tell you the number of things I didn't know about until I happened to catch a TikTok or an Instagram reel or a short. And it's like, because I'm not really watching TV anymore. If I'm on a streaming service, I'm not seeing, like, what a new car looks like. I'm not hearing about a movie. I'm doing it through other types of things. And I think that's why you get kind of similar blowback, because it's so new to people that if it's new, it must be a scam. And there's a lot, and I think people think there's a lot of, like, you're not like a conspiracy theory nut. And I think a lot of people throw some crypto folks into conspiracy theories. Like, they think it's political. You're not really political.
I'm apolitical, but to go back to what you were talking about in regards to defending Bitcoin, I never feel like I have to defend it. I feel like anybody that comes to me with an anti-Bitcoin stance has to defend fiat to me. They have to defend whatever investment that they're saying is better than Bitcoin. And then we pull charts up and we take a look, and now you're on the defense, not me.
Yeah.
Because when I show you the Bitcoin chart over a 4-year span, over a 10-year span, over the life of Bitcoin, there is no other investment that's beaten it. So if you're going to have an argument with me and tell me that Bitcoin's a scam, now we have to have a serious conversation about real estate being a scam, the S&P 500 being a scam, gold being a scam, because all of those charts get obliterated by Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin is a scam, you have to look at everything you put your money into as potentially being a scam.
And that's why it's funny,
which it is,
because, like, there's definitely, and I joke about this, like, I was just saying this to my son and one of my other friends that I work with that's much younger than me, and then you, and it's like, I don't want to even say radicalized is the right word, but, like, my opinions, while I have grown significantly and my opinions have shifted so much on so many things, because of like conversations I have with my son about politics, about podcasts that I watch, about talking to you about like finance. I mean, like thinking about, 401k is the way to go. And then you realize, well, maybe I should do a little research. Just because it was great in 1975 doesn't mean it's the best. And I think it's funny because you always like, man, you always bring, you bring the gun to the knife fight. Like you just do. Again, not in an intimidating way, just based on you know what you're talking about. That's what I think that's why I enjoy producing yours. I really, because you never dial it in. And that's my next question. How much time do you spend? Because obviously you spend a lot of time, not a lot. First of all, just about crypto and Bitcoin in general, how much time do you spend on it, and how much of that goes into the pod? And another content, because not all the content you do content on your own too.
Yeah. For full context, the 401k was created in 1978. Just so we're clear, you said 1975. It was created in 1978, which is basically the 401k is as old as I am. And
right.
People look at that as like an investment that's been around forever, and it's like spanning my lifetime. So there was a time in your life that the 401k didn't even exist.
Really? I think we just bought CDs back then.
There were more pensions, and that was basically like people retired on pensions, and then your life expectancy was significantly less than it is now. So the Social Security aspect was supposed to make you be able to have a retirement that would be with dignity,
right?
And that doesn't exist now. You can't live on just Social Security alone. That's poverty levels.
I said to my son yesterday, I'm like, you're pretty much better find the job that you like, because you're probably going to have to work forever. Like, because of so many things changing financially. Either you've got to figure out a way that you can put money away so you can get out when you want, or you're going to be working a really, really long time. And I think that's the kind of the aspect of financial literacy that people just don't have.
Yeah. And people are living longer. Yep. It's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing if you are properly allocated for those extra years. If you're not properly allocated for a 70-year-old retirement, how are you going to be properly allocated if you live to be 95 or 100?
For sure.
You know what I mean? And then you become a burden on your family, and then they resent you, and then your final years are just awful. Like, it all comes back to money. And again, I hate because I come off as somebody that like is so like capitalistic and just money is like rules the world and money is everything. And it's like, it seems that way, except like, I feel, and I say this a lot, I feel like I'm not, I woke up from the Matrix and everybody else is still living in it. Right. And I see how it works, and I'm trying to tell people like what's happening, and nobody wants to hear it.
But I also know, and I've seen you with your kids, so I know that you're more than that. And we've had enough off podcast conversations. I know that like the people that you interact with, I think I have a good sense of who you are as a person when you're not talking about, when you're not the Bitcoin maxi.
It doesn't help that my son's first name is Cash, though.
Well, it's funny. My son's first name is Christian, and he's the most unreligious person you ever meet in your life. So we always joke about like, how did I end up with that name? I'm like, I don't know. It was like, it had nothing to do with religion. We just thought it sounded good. Like, and that was. I hate to say that's where it came from. We better let's keep on, because we're way off. This is my fault. Again, how much time do you spend? Let's just focus on podcasting then.
Yeah.
When you're prepping, because obviously you're looking at charts and stuff.
Yeah.
So, because obviously for the pod when you're with me, but then also you jump on and just do your own short content by yourself. So obviously the short content you just kind of do on yourself. It's just like, man, I should address this because it just happened. That type of thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, this answer might disappoint you, but like the podcast is just an extension of like my regular life. Like I'm preparing every day because I'm immersed in this market every day. I'm either doing my TradFi job, or I'm on Spaces at night listening to Bitcoin Spaces, or I'm reading articles, or people are interacting with me. So it's like the preparation is just, it's not even preparation. So I couldn't even tell you. It's like what kind of time I'm spending. The only thing I can say is the day before I just get things arranged to know like exactly what we're going to be hitting.
Well, there are technical things, like you never just walk in and say, I don't know, like you always have a sense like these are five things on X that I saw, or this was an article I saw on CNN or whatever, like that you're planning on.
Usually the day before I'll get that going. I'll send it to Troy. or I'll just have it in a database for me that I can pull from as we're filming and talk about. But a lot of times the conversations can be so organic that half the things that I wanted to talk about, we don't end up even.
And it's what's
addressing.
different, and it's really no different than if, like if I'm just trying to think, one of the guys from one of the other interviews that I did, if he was sitting there talking about his content, again, like they're really into their content, and it is something that they spend a lot of time on. The guys that sit over there that do the sports one, they're into sports. They're into sports betting. They're into cards. They're into what happened with their favorite teams. Like they're talking about wrestling, whatever. Like we all have these things that we're passionate about, and yours just happens to be more on the financial end of things. It's like, and that's why I laugh, because it's like, if I just did a nerdy podcast, people pick, you dress up and you're like Mr. Spock or something. And I'm like, well, I don't do that, but I'm like, but you walk around with a Josh Allen sweatshirt on every time I see you. So it's like, what's the difference? And I think it's just, if you're true to what you're passionate about and you can find a way to create content and you're true to that brand, I think that's like kind of why podcasts are successful within whatever you measure success as.
Yeah, I think podcasting 101 would be, don't try to force it. Don't do something just because you think it's going to be popular. People are going to want to watch it and you're going to get clicks, views, or monetized, or whatever aspect would motivate you to do something like that. If you don't like the content that you're doing, or you don't have an understanding, it doesn't motivate you to like get up and do it every week, it's a big waste of time.
Yeah, and that's my thing. I mean, there's days where like, oh, maybe we should just take this week off or something, like, or I don't want to go in today, and then let's find a different thing, or maybe it's the topic. Sometimes I don't feel the topic that I want to talk about sometimes, and it's funny too, because when I'm on a lot of pods where we talk about something like we watched, content, and we like to break it down, and we've started to avoid certain topics and types of content, in intellectual properties, because like the environment's just so toxic. No matter what you say, you're getting like, and we just don't want to get into like these beefs, in the comment section. And it just gets to the point where like, it's not worth it. So let's just find something that it's a little bit, we're not going to just have to constantly like, well, you guys are just shills for this or shills for that. And it's just and that's, you must get that. You must get a lot of those comments.
I love it.
Yeah.
I actually, if you comment on a Defion Productions video on YouTube and you get a comment back, it's me commenting. Right. I comment on everything. You could come at me with fire, flames, whatever. You're getting it back from me. I actually love that. Most people don't. I get excited when I see the little red dot that I have a comment. Ooh, what are they saying this time? Right. I don't care if it's good, bad, indifferent, ugly. I'll come, and most of the time, 99% of the time, it's an ignorant comment that has very little depth or understanding, and I just eviscerate them with logic, and they'll go like one or two, and then they just stop, because is it because they're an Ethereum guy, or they're just anti-crypto, a little bit of everything? Well, they think, what is it? To break everything down, to make it really simple, there's Bitcoin, there's crypto.
Right.
Okay. Crypto is trying to be Bitcoin, and it can't. Bitcoin is a decentralized platform. Bitcoin only has 21 million. It's got scarcity. Bitcoin is decentralized, doesn't have active founders, and every other coin has all those things that I just mentioned. So there's a lot of scams. There's a lot of nefarious actors. So crypto bleeds into Bitcoin. People see crypto, and when they say crypto, they think Bitcoin, but Bitcoiners know that Bitcoin and crypto are separate.
Right.
So you have a lot of that, and that murks the waters for people. And we just talked about this yesterday, and I actually just clipped a video that I posted talking about how for most people, like, they'll look at Bitcoin like it's an investment. And for me, it's not an investment. It's the escape hatch. Like, I'm not putting money in Bitcoin, or I don't have value in Bitcoin because I'm hoping to buy it at 80 to sell it at 120, or I'm hoping it goes to 100 to sell for $1 million. Like, I'm putting Bitcoin in something as an escape hatch for the type of life that would have if it never came along, but
Right.
I'm able to change the trajectory of my family
Right.
because this asset is going to take over the financial system, whether it's in my lifetime or not. And I'm going to be the Ranalli that's responsible for making that happen.
Yeah,
for
and I
us.
think that's kind of like what a lot of people, my generation, like I said, when the first thing my dad told me when I was getting a teaching job, he's like, the very first day there's going to be a financial guy there. You should go talk to him and find out about starting putting some money aside, right away. Like I'm like, but I'm like, I just got the job. He's like, just don't worry about that. He's like, just you get start already. He's like, take $100 out, whatever. He's like, start putting money aside because like, yeah, you'll get a pension. And he was like, it's interesting because obviously he died in 2020. I would have loved to have a conversation with him, what he thought about, because I think he was a pretty sharp guy, but he was the same way though. He was able in his mind, and I agree with him. He was really able to do what he needed to do with his money because he never got a pension. He was able to put a ton of money aside. All of his grandkids got money to go to college with 529s. He just always took care of everybody on a personal level, but he also felt it was his job as grandpa to take care of people, on a financial level too. And I think like when and he made sure my mom was all set and it's, I think that was, he'd be proud that he was able to, I think if I got a chance to talk to him, how much he was able to do with the money by just planning, by just having a plan. And I think unfortunately younger people don't think about that and they're not planning for that. I think they don't realize it. I don't think they realize what they need to start having a plan.
Can I give you a quick example about why I'm so passionate about Bitcoin? And you've heard this example before, so play along. Your first year teaching was what year?
91, 92.
91, 92. Let's pretend it was 93, just for the sake of this argument. If you sat down in 93 with that financial advisor that your dad was telling you to sit down with, you would have sat down with maybe the best financial advisor in the industry who could plan things out, see the future, and figure out a way for you to put money away and to be okay at retirement. He probably at that time would have crafted some sort of portfolio that would have had you maybe be a millionaire by the time you stop putting money away 30 years down the line in 1993, right? He would have done nothing wrong. No fault of his own, creating that portfolio for you. The only problem that he can't foresee is the fact that, like I had mentioned, that we continue to print money at insane clips, and he wouldn't have been able to have the foresight to see 2008 happen and 2020 happen.
As well as 2001.
Right, as well as 2001. To know that the $1 million that you had wanted to save in 1993, 30 years later in 2023, you would need 2.3 million to equal the buying power of that million in 1993.
And I do remember having conversations over the years with people about that. And, and even friends now that are like actively, that may be slightly younger than me, closer to your age, that, that don't have pensions and how they're planning to, how much money they think that they have to have for them to walk away from what they're doing. And if some of them are like, well, maybe I'll just have to work a little bit longer than I plan to because that money that I thought that I was putting aside just wasn't enough. Or just, or I lost some because of some of the things, like you said, because of inflation and all those kinds of stuff. How do you keep, I don't even think I have to ask you this question because the podcast is just an extension of your belief system. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's not hard for you to stay motivated.
No, not at all. I look forward to coming in every week to film. Yeah, it's not, there's no.
I don't think we've missed too many weeks. And if we had a reschedule because of a work thing, I think we always just came in at a different time or came in the next day.
Yeah,
I don't think we only took maybe 2 weeks off.
Yeah, maybe the whole time. It's probably been maybe 1 or 2 weeks that we haven't filmed. Yeah.
And I think that's like a commitment that people kind of have that, I try to explain that to people sometimes. It's like, you're going to have to, you got to kind of have a commitment to it if you really think you're going to grow the way you want it to grow. And so how do you promote? Like, you've grown, you've got in the beginning you had 2 followers or whatever it was, and now you've got whatever number. What's been the best way for you to promote what you've done?
It's tough. YouTube is really hard. It's very niche, the crypto and YouTube space, and it's saturated by a couple of large voices that everybody kind of watches. And the one thing I will say that we haven't done that a lot of podcasts will do is I guess you could say sell out. I don't know if you want to call it sell out. They get sponsorships or they'll promote coins. We've actually had an opportunity to do that through Troy, and I nixed the idea. I don't want any, we call them shit coins. I don't want any of this nonsense to have my name attached to it. I want to keep my integrity. I want to keep my a good name in this space. So you see a lot of those things, especially on YouTube, where they'll put little sponsorships in the corner. So for me, growing X has been where I have my probably largest footprint in the ecosystem.
Well, one of the things I'll say that I think I looked at with yours is one of the things that we did is in the beginning we weren't live.
Yeah.
I think we were just recording and then we were reposting.
Yeah.
And I think we tried to start on Facebook and that didn't seem to work right. So we switched to YouTube. And then somewhere in there, one of the other podcasters, we started talking about using StreamYard. So that's the software that I like. I'm going to normally ask you guys about, ask my guest about it, but we decided that StreamYard was a way to go because that gave us the ability to be live in multiple places, and you still get the file, and you can still make shorts and other short content from that. But it allowed you to be on YouTube, Facebook, and 2 different X accounts as long as you're verified.
Yep.
And I learned a lot from that because we realized that in certain areas, you should be on certain different platforms, like. Sometimes you should be on TikTok for that type of thing. But I totally agree. I think like X is really kind of the way to go for this space, for this type of space that you guys are in.
Yeah, I don't like Instagram and I don't like TikTok. I have a TikTok and I have an Instagram and I don't really post a lot on those platforms. I know people like TikTok. It's not, I don't know. I don't like it's too much. It's overstimulating for me. It's not really I don't consume content on there. So I'm not motivated to consume.
I also think that like you really kind of got TikToks tend to be, in my opinion, if they're more than 60 to 90 seconds, it's too much anyway. Like it just doesn't work.
That's why there's a lot of bad information on there.
So that's why I feel like your stuff has to be a little bit longer just because it's too much information. And that's kind of like, it's one thing if we're watching a TV show and I'm reacting to a Star Wars video or whatever, or a movie trailer, and I'm like, oh my God, like that's great short content because it's just a reaction. It's literally what TikTok quite often is, or a dance, or a quick little joke, like a meme or whatever it might be. And I agree. I feel like you've got to find, and you got to experiment. Like we did. We like, let's try live. We tried Facebook. We didn't really like the way Facebook worked. And then I feel like now we using StreamYard, and I was just talking with a friend of mine yesterday who's trying to do more professional podcasts, and he's like, we're going to be going live on LinkedIn because that's more of where, because he's a lawyer and he wants to have more, he wants to be able to be in a more professional setting. And a lot of people don't even realize you can use LinkedIn for that stuff. A lot of people are starting to move to LinkedIn because it's a little bit of a cleaner, less crappy, social media because it's more professional. Because it's usually tied to your business relation, your employment status. So you're not going to be on there like swearing and doing hate and everything else.
You would hope, yeah.
For at least not yet. We'll probably get there. We talked a little bit about it. When you talk to Troy, how do you guys feel about the growth in terms of your following?
Again, on YouTube,
we already kind of talked about this.
Yeah, YouTube a little disappointing, but it's expected. Like we're not doing what these other channels are doing in our space to get that growth, and I'm not willing to do it. So I've accepted that it's just going to be what it is for us in that respect. But the X growth that I've had is probably where I'm the most proudest of the whole experience of content creating, because there's a lot of I take pride in the fact that there's quite a few of the large voices in the Bitcoin space specifically that follow me. Right. So if you're going to follow somebody on X or on any platform, you have to value the content that they're putting out. You don't want to flood your algorithm with nonsense. Right. At least I don't want to. And there's quite a few content creators / just voices in the space that I really respect that follow me. And I've grown my following to, I think, somewhere over 3,000 people are following me on X. And, I'll jump into spaces I was in one last night, and from time to time, I'll jump on a stage and I'll speak. And most of the time that I'm on a space, I have most time of most people in the ecosystem because I've been in this since December of 2013. So I've seen multiple cycles. I've seen most of what you could possibly have seen happen in this ecosystem, and I can kind of speak to that, and people like that and respect that.
And I think because you've done that, that's led to growth. Like people have heard you on those things, and maybe if they don't even agree with you, they may say, well, this guy knows his stuff, or at least he's a guy that I can understand, that he knows he's got information. And I think that's probably that other stuff. And that's part of one of the questions like I had, like promoting it. I think that's part of how you promote it, by being interactive in. And I think that's two things, because you interact with your folks through comments. Mm-hmm. You're going and doing stuff like out there, joining spaces and jumping up on stage and doing things like that. I think those are and also you guys are very consistent and frequent with your content. You don't take too many weeks off. And then I'll see something where something will pop up on he recorded that at the house. You felt you needed to jump in, and I think that's pretty cool. And then now you're also doing some short content. Yeah. So tell because that's more of a technical thing for people who might be watching this, because you're not a video editor.
Not at all. No.
You're not. I mean, I'll spend 3 days. Next week I'm going to spend the whole week editing, but you're not really a video editor. So how do you create your short content?
You gave me the idea to use Opus clips, and what I do is I take our YouTube clip, our YouTube video, like I did this yesterday. It was 59 minutes or whatever it was, 58 minutes. I'll put it into the Opus clip website, and in about 20 minutes, it'll make like 20 clips.
Are you pulling down the YouTube file, or are you pulling down the file from StreamYard?
Well, I've had to use the StreamYard file a couple of times. We talked about that because for some reason YouTube won't work. Right. It'll be glitchy. But it's worked for the last couple of weeks, and it'll give me like 20 or sometimes it'll give me 25 clips to choose from, anywhere from like 30 seconds to like 3 minutes. Yeah. And YouTube did change, at least since I've been creating content. It used to be like you couldn't do a video longer than 60 seconds. Right. Now YouTube will let you do a 2 or 3 minute video. Right. As a short video. So that's helped because it allows me to have more to choose from there. But what I really like is I'll use any of the videos that I have, and I'll post them on my X account, and I'll just, because there's a couple of, the thing I like about X the most is the fact that there's communities. Right. Like I'm a part of the Bitcoin Army community. I'm a part of the Verified Bitcoiners community. I'm a part of just the Bitcoin community, which is like there's like 50,000 people in the Bitcoin community. Bitcoin Army just passed like 2,100. I was on their spaces last night, actually talking about potentially being one of their spaces hosts that they might have on a weekly basis. And Gary Cardone has spaces, Grant Cardone's brother. I was doing a lot of his spaces about a year ago. I haven't done as many now because they go off on a lot of tangents. It's Bitcoin, but then it goes into a lot of places that I just don't have. Right. Like they'll talk about LNG because that's what Gary's background is, or they'll go like macro stuff that I don't really feel like I could contribute a lot to. Right. But if the conversations stay in Bitcoin, I'll try to jump in here and there. But I mean, that's the X is the spot, I think, for me.
And what I like about Opus Clip is that I can use that app to just edit and create things and put all the automatic texting in, so I don't have to figure out how to type, and I got to go back and spell check and make sure, because I'm sure that if you say something like, if you say one of the meme coins by name, half the time it's going to spell it wrong in the auto. It does when it does the auto text. Yeah. And you got to go and you got to fix that, and you can change the colors, and you can be creative, whatever, and then you can make it look good, and then you can either upload it directly to something like a TikTok, or like you download it. And it's not an expensive product. I mean, it's really not. It was $15-20 a month or something.
No, but we're talking quite a bit about it. You might want to tag them in this video when you release this, and see if we can get a sponsorship from Opus Clips. Maybe
that would be nice.
Offset some of the costs.
Considering how much I'm on there. I mean, I use so many different apps now, and I think people don't realize that. So, obviously this is a business, so I have to buy things, and I have a president. So, full disclosure, Meranto Media is an S corp. I like to tell people that. And my wife is 51% owner, so we are female-owned business.
Smart man.
And she is the president. Like, she's the president anyway, right? I mean, like, in my house, I mean, there's a joke, and I forget who the comedian was. He was like, I don't want that job anyway. You can be in charge. Why would I want to be in charge? But she is incredibly supportive. Like when we wanted to move over here, she was like, just go do it. Like, just stop talking about it. You're driving me crazy. But then she also says like, hey, like, what are you doing over there? Like, what's new? And she'll say that in such a way. And I said, what do you mean by that? She's like, what are you trying? What's something new you did this week? And I'm like, I didn't think about it. She's like, well, then that's a problem. She's like, you need to keep finding ways. What are new apps out there? What are new trends? What are the things? Because you can't just rest on your laurels being that it worked a year ago, 2 months ago. So like that was one of the things. Once we kind of did the brick and mortar over here, then it was like, all right, what kind of apps are out there? And I found that when you start adding those all up for your taxes, I spent a lot of money on subscriptions for things that you just have to have so you can do a better job for your clients. Mm-hmm. And it's just a question of, again, me being prepared and trying to figure out ways to do a better job on StreamYard to like, we're using a blue background. I mean, we should jazz that up. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do for my clients. And I mean, I think like in some ways that's kind of like, you got to keep your podcast fresh in some respects. Mm-hmm. When you think about it, what are big challenges that maybe as you've done this, that best practices, anything that you've learned about podcasting in terms of like challenges you faced, or maybe something like a best practice that you've got or something like that?
Well, feedback that I'll get from people a lot of the time is that they'll watch, but they don't necessarily understand a lot of the things that we're talking about. So for me, the podcast has been an opportunity to those conversations that I would have in the past where people would reach out to me to ask me one-on-one about, hey, what's going on with Bitcoin, or what's going on with whatever. I can direct them to specific content that I have, because we have over 300 videos in our library through shorts and videos. And it's allowed me to direct people to certain things. And then when I do that, they'll message me back and give me feedback on certain things. So it's good, I guess, to get to the question of like best practices. Like, I want to keep improving. One of the things that I do when we film on Thursday is I go home and watch the playback, and I see how many times I do or like those types of things, and I'll like the way I'm carrying myself, how I'm coming across, if I'm cognizant of what's happening, and don't talk over Troy and stuff like that, and just trying to be better as a content creator, while also recognizing that I don't care if one person's watching or 1,000 people are watching. I'm having a good time while I'm doing it. And as long as that's happening, then at the very end of the day, that's all that really matters.
Well, what's funny? Like, somebody was here the other day and they said to me, how many of your podcasts are successful? And I just kind of stopped and I was like, I don't know how to answer that question, because every single person that's in here that's still going has a different concept of what they think success looks like. Like, if like my one friend Matt, who got me into all of this podcasting, was my student, and then he's in, when we were doing the audio versions,
Mm-hmm.
We put it on his network, and Matt's now doing a lot of like wellness podcast content. And he's like, if one person says, man, that really helped me, then I'm successful today. Like, so he goes, yeah, if I can help 1 million people, awesome. But he goes, I don't expect that. He's like, really, for me, like, it's successful for me because I enjoy what I'm creating and I get some nice feedback. He goes, even if I get feedback, like he got feedback about somebody, he used a term wrong according to somebody on the internet. And it was like, he's like,
because everybody on the internet's always right.
Yeah. He's like, okay. He's like, I'm sorry. I saw the comment, mm-hmm. and he was like, thank you. I Googled it and you're right. Thank you for the heads up. He didn't get into a big thing like, hey, I'm just new at, he said like, I got a lot out of that experience because now maybe I should be making sure I know my terminology a little bit better. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But he also says, I'm not a wellness expert. I don't even work in this profession. I'm just a guy that dealt with depression. So he goes, but these are 5 books that I read, or these are 5 movies that cheer me up, or, things like that. But his level of success is that it's, the last time 12 people watched it, this time 20 people watched it. He doesn't care he's not trying. He does. If he monetizes it, so he start making money someday. Great. I think that person wanted me to know how many people like are full-time podcasters, and
They're
I'm like,
asking you the wrong question.
Yeah.
I think if you have to take longer than 5 seconds to answer that question, you probably shouldn't be podcasting. And the answer is no. You're not successful.
right.
If you can just say, yeah, I'm successful, and not have to explain that to somebody and verify what that means, then
And not all your content will be successful. Like you might do something and you thought it was going to be like you were going to get a good response for it, and maybe just nobody saw it. And if there are things that you have found that certain episode, like that one day we had a lot more live watchers and we weren't even sure why.
yeah, it was a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
And it wasn't like we'd put in a bunch of hashtags or something, like we cut the algorithm.
Yeah. We had like 200 people watching it live at the same time, which was a lot. I think yesterday we had like 50.
Usually we're up like around 100 at the most. It was just, and it's funny, like, and people are like, well, how come? I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I can Google it, and I can watch a lot, I read a lot of articles. So, like, but again, I think success has got to be measured in, if you have a goal that, well, in a year I want to monetize, okay, that's great. That's a great goal to have. But do you understand even how to what monetization is and like how it works on YouTube and how many watch hours it is? So I have to explain that to people sometimes. That doesn't seem to be your priority.
No, and it's funny because the platform that I use that I like the least is where I got monetized first.
Right.
I monetized on Facebook, and I don't even like. X is my favorite platform.
Right.
By far, and YouTube is where you can make the most money. So obviously, it'd be nice to be monetized there. And here I am monetized on Facebook.
Well, it's really funny because again, the one of our podcasts that has done very well is the one that my son's on, and they do a lot of crazy content, and they've changed their model, and they do D&D on Fridays, and they do reaction videos, but they have an ensemble. They have 4 guys for sure. And then me and about 3 other people, we tend to jump in for different types of content. And it's funny because they just keep trying different things. And they have one TikTok that's got like 10 million views. And the funny thing about that TikTok is it's not even good. Like, it's not like anything in there was about their brand. What they happened to TikTok about, which was a reaction from an animated TV show, and it just, that clip had caught the algorithm. They just happened to be lucky enough to ride the wave. But what it did is it grew the number of subscribers. Yeah, so they got a ridiculous amount of new subscribers out of it just because they happened to catch the algorithm.
That's I couldn't even tell you how to figure out the algorithm. It is its own thing. It's its own beast. But if you're able to have something like that occur on a platform, that's the best way to.
Right.
But the problem with the algorithm and all that stuff is a lot of, like you said, like I don't know specifically speaking to that video and that content, but there's a lot of content that hits the algorithm and gets a lot of views. That's terrible.
Yeah.
It's awful. And half the stuff in crypto and Bitcoin isn't even true. It's completely baseless, not true, unfactual, awful, terrible quality, and it'll hit like 100 million views, and then that person gets all these subscribers, and then people are watching this person who obviously has no idea what they're talking about, and then those are the people that end up, quote unquote, being successful.
Yeah. And we know enough of those folks that end up not being around very long.
Every cycle.
It is. And whether it's Hawk 2 Girl or whoever it is, like, there's tons of people that come and go quickly within social media, just podcasting in general. It's funny because, I tell the people, like, 93, I did all the research when I was doing my business plan, 93% of podcasts that have existed don't make it past 7 episodes. And only 2% out of all the podcasts in the world have made it to 100 podcasts. So, I mean, I am pretty proud of the fact that we have a crap load of podcasts in this building that are in that 2%.
We're at 77. Yesterday was 76 or 77.
And the only reason you haven't got to 100 yet is you just haven't got there yet.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a question of it's not a question of if, it's just a question of when.
Yeah.
And I think that is, but you also have hundreds of other videos. So in a sense, like, you're creating enough content. And I think part of that just, but I think that's like what people don't understand. If you just have to commit to it. Like, you might get lucky, but you said it. And I wanted to circle back to this. I just remember that you said this is at the beginning, Troy was all worried about doing this and doing this. And you were like, listen, in the beginning, let's just kind of figure out how to do this. And then, because almost in the beginning, if it stinks, you almost don't want people to find you until you're actually halfway decent.
The worst thing that could possibly happen is that we got super successful, went viral, and we're like, all of a sudden, the place people went to, and we're not ready for that.
Yeah, and you got to you got a laptop microphone.
That,
and,
not even equipment wise.
like-
not even equipment wise. Just like our style, our comfort, our ability to just like have a routine. You know what I mean? Like you'll see a lot of these podcasts, which I think is why they fail. They'll come out of nowhere. And they didn't spend any time grinding. They didn't spend any time figuring things out. They just wanted, like, you can't do this wanting to be successful.
Right.
Because if you want to be successful, the worst thing that can happen to you is that you get successful. And if there's nothing behind that, you're going to
There's a lot of people that jump into podcasting because they can, like the Kelsey brothers. Like their podcast there's 100 podcasts that are better. There's 100 podcasts that are worse. But
that's a good example of making my point.
They're the Kelsey brothers, and one of them happens to date somebody very famous.
But they're not doing it because they want to be famous.
Right.
They're already famous,
Right.
and they're two brothers just having a podcast because it's fun, and it just happens to be decent because.
And I
you're
say
seeing
that to
two
people.
brothers
I'm
having
like,
a
the
podcast.
person that had a tougher road is McAfee. Yes,
100%.
he was a bigger.
100%.
He was a well-known guy.
Nobody
He was a
knew
personality.
Nobody knew the punter of the
Right.
Indianapolis Colts.
He
built a brand.
especially when he started. He built a brand, and he did it out of sheer loyalty to like his people. And that, like, I like him just because I like how he says it. I like the way what he's tried to do and build for himself, based on like bringing around these goofballs and clowns that he has. But he's an extremely loyal guy, and he knows what his brand is. He always, from the beginning, he's been pretty straightforward in what his brand's going to be.
You know who the best example is? Joe Rogan.
Sure.
Do you know his story? He was on Tom Green's show like 16 years ago, and Tom Green was interviewing him, and Rogan was looking around. He's like, man, how cool would this be to just talk to people and make money doing it? And literally, like the next week, he set up a studio in his house, and he's like, I want to interview people, and I just want to have interesting conversations.
Right.
And that's never changed. And now he's the most popular podcast in the world. And all he does is smoke weed and have conversations with people he finds interesting. And it just happens to be that millions of people also find that interesting, and he created a brand.
And you talked about it, and let's get into this a little bit. And I've done this differently with different people, and I feel it's less, because we've already kind of addressed it. When you're done with the pod, like, it's definitely like there's a level. Do you feel like, because obviously you work out and stuff too. Like I feel it reminds me when I was a runner. And when I was done running, I always have that runner's high. And I kind of get, like, when I leave this podcast that I really wanted to talk to you, I was really looking forward to your interview. And I get a bit of a podcaster high. Like, I really like having conversations with people, because I think you and I are passionate about this in our own way. But I think I have so much respect for you because your commitment of what you want to do. Like, I never have to worry about, oh, is Don going to quit? Is Don, he's going to, because tell me about that. Like, what are you getting out of from a podcast? Forget about the financial aspects of it and all that stuff. Like, how does it make you feel in terms of when the creativity involved and all that stuff?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't really take a lot of time to think about that. For me, I decide to do something, and then I just do it. And then I don't like to be told that I can't. And I just want to be as good as I can possibly be at the thing that I want to do until it stops.
Yeah.
That's
and I love that answer.
That's really it. And
I love that answer.
I mean, there's a lot of examples in my life that I could probably point to, and this just happens to be the latest one. It's just, it's what I want to do, and I don't like to quit. And starting out, when me and Troy first did this, it was like we would have these conversations. Oh, we're going to, because he's like, so much, you're so good. We're going to hit the algorithm. And it's like, that'd be awesome. But like, if it doesn't, if I like it, I'm just going to keep doing it. I'm not going to stop because we didn't hit 1 million subscribers. I'm not going to stop because I'm not making money. I just get up every Thursday and come here, and I like to talk about this. And
and that's how I am. Like, I started my first podcast that I did. We don't do it very often just because we're just both so busy with so many other things, was the one I started with my son. And it was conversations we were having anyway. We've been having these conversations at the dining room table for since he was 8, about Star Wars and, anything that we happen to be watching. What'd you think of this? And then when I got into podcasting, he was like, I think I'd want to do it. So we just call it Next of Kin. And we got to 100 episodes, and we just kind of stopped, mainly because we're so busy on other things. But it was it was fun. It was rewarding. And I was gratified the fact that I got a 20-something-year-old kid, and he just actually wants to hang out with his old man. Like that was just for me, that was success. Like it was an activity, and we would get enough interaction that it was fun, and like when we still get together and do it occasionally, like it's almost like we just kind of have fun with it because we don't even care. Like it's just we want to do it because we want to put out something that we find amusing, that we just want to talk about. And if we get some likes out of it, great. It is definitely fun, and I do see like a change in people when they're done. Like it's like a really fun thing. And like you say, your attitude is just so healthy about it. Like you're not expecting tomorrow that there's going to be a knock on the door and you're going to get some. And the endorsement deal would have to be something that you believed in.
Yeah, but my biggest fear is you close the studio. That's the only thing because I'm gonna come here and knock on the door until you stop opening it when I come in.
Well, that's good to hear because I got bills and and you know what my problem is I taught I was a teacher for 31 years and I built a lot of programs. I built a cable channel at Niagara Falls High School, and I was very active in the drama club, and that was very successful. And I thought I was a pretty good coach. My kids did very well. So anytime I do something new, I'm just waiting for I've been very successful in other things I did, so this is the time I'll probably fail. So I'm super motivated just because there's still that part of me is I can't fail. I don't, and failure is the way not somebody else's failure. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I know I want to be successful in the way I view it. And that's why once we got over here, we're having such a good time. And now I'm like, yeah, we'll make a little bit of money, whatever. But I'm just having a great time doing it. And I'm providing that fun service for people that I don't think would be able to do it otherwise. Because you could buy all this equipment and throw it up in your basement, I suppose. But what do you do with it the other 6 days a week?
Yeah, I think failure is quitting. That's the only failure that exists. Everything else is just the road to your eventual success. All the bumps in the road are just if you keep trying, eventually you'll succeed or you'll die trying. I think the only time we really fail is when we just quit, when we just decide that we're going to throw in the towel. So, something like the podcasting that we're talking about, people stop podcasting because they quit, not because they're not good enough, not because they're not getting views, not because it's just people have unrealistic expectations. And when you have unrealistic expectations, you set yourself up for failure and you give yourself the excuse to quit. Right. It's just the dichotomy of life. It's anything in life.
That's really, really good advice. That's one of the last couple questions. What are you most proud of with your content?
Authenticity. Authenticity and being able to have a platform for people that I know can go to when they ask me those questions that they always ask, and I can direct them to that. Any mistakes that you think you made that you're looking back on? Yeah, anything in really blaring that, what was I thinking? Yeah, I mean, the early podcasts, the quality was terrible. We just wanted to get started. I was doing it on my phone without a microphone. Quality was awful at the first couple. But again, I just wanted to get comfortable talking, and it wasn't live, but I wanted to get comfortable talking into a camera, and Troy was doing a lot of our early editing and stuff like that. But when I look back at some of the videos, I'm just like, oh my God.
I look at the stuff I was doing when I first opened the building on Military in 2022. And I had run a television station for 18 years, and I look back on some of my original content. I'm like, what was I thinking? Why did I put that camera there? It looks terrible. But it was I'd done some initial research, and then I realized I have to design. I can't look at what Rogan does or anybody else does. I mean, I can kind of maybe research a model. I like to zoom in on podcasts and see what the model number they're using and stuff like that. But you have to, I think what I learned, and my son has been instrumental, and some of the podcasters, Tank from the Tank Talk, you've met most of these guys, just being a collaborative space. None of us pretend like we're all experts. I don't tell to anybody this is the way you got to do it. I'm always open to somebody's ideas, and I've stolen best practices from other people. Say, well, have you ever seen this one or you done that? I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea. I'm like, I'm going to do that. But even just, and then being willing to not act like you know everything. Like, I don't pretend to be the best sound engineer in the world, the best lighting director in the world. I try to find people that I know, former students or whatever, and say, hey, come look at my stuff and just give me your 2 cents. Like, tell me what you think. And it just, again, trying to be collaborative with the folks around me and try to find ways to just have fun so that we're all part. And I think you're part. I really appreciate the fact that anytime I've had an event, you've been here. Like you want to meet the other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the cool thing that we have here too, is
yeah,
the collaborative environment.
I've said it before, and I know we're getting close to wrapping up, and I'll say
Yep.
it again. Like, I'm still waiting for the phone call. Anybody that wants to collaborate, either I come on your podcast, you come on my podcast.
Yep.
I know I'm the Bitcoin guy, and it's weird, and not everybody understands it. But like, if you ever want to have a conversation, I'm willing to be on. And again, too, like one of the things that I want to do more of on our podcast, and we got to figure out how to do it, how to make it happen. I'd like to do more interviews. Like, I like this sort of like back and forth, especially with somebody that doesn't understand any of it, or even a skeptic. Like, I would love to do more one-on-one interviews with people. And if somebody else that's out there in the Emerge community that wants to come on and talk, I'll have them on the podcast, or if you want me on yours and something crosses the crypto sphere or even finance, I'd love to do it.
I'm going to wrap it up because I wanted to keep it to an hour, and we're just about there. And, so first of all, thanks. You know,
absolutely.
I want to shout out to your mom and dad are here.
Yeah, my parents
We've never had we've had live studio audiences, but I've never had a live studio audience, so I was nervous about it. But you know, they didn't boo me or anything, so that's good. You know, they didn't throw any rocks at me, or you know, why'd you ask them that? You know, like, because that's probably how I'd be if someone was interviewing my kids. No, thank you. I appreciate obviously you being part of Emerge, but I also appreciate that you were willing to sit down and talk about it. Absolutely. Because you don't talk about this on. It's nice that I may be someone who doesn't understand why people spend this much time doing things. It's passionate, and in your case, something that you're passionate about, that's a big part of your life. You also have to have a podcast about it, which I think is the key. So
absolutely.
I'm gonna tell my producer to go to your shot.
Okay.
And I want you to end this podcast like you end your own podcast.
All right. If you're watching this podcast and you've never seen the Defion Productions podcast before, you can find me on YouTube, Defion Labs Productions. You can find me on X at Ranalli_Don, and just Don Ranalli on Facebook. And we end every single podcast the same way. And if you watch our content, you'll understand why. Don't trust, verify. Thank you.